I was standing behind the half-open sliding door, quiet as a shadow. From where I stood, I could see my sister-in-law crouched over a little metal trash can in my own living room. In her hand was a credit card bent and scorched at the edges. She tossed it in, the plastic hissing as it caught, and laughed with her friend like it was the funniest thing in the world. "Some idiots never check their balances," she said. The smell of burnt plastic filled the air, sharp and bitter. I gripped the doorframe to stop myself from stepping out. For weeks, I'd been getting strange fraud alerts. Luxury purchases, cruise tickets, jewelry orders, but the bank couldn't figure out who was behind it. I'd canceled the card, got a new one, and still the charges kept coming. I was starting to think I was losing my mind. And now, here she was destroying the evidence right in front of me. She didn't even know I was watching. She didn't know that the idiot she was laughing about was standing just a few feet away. She didn't know she was burning my card. My heart was pounding, not from fear, but from a strange, cold calm. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't some misunderstanding. She'd gone into my things, taken my card, spent nearly $90,000, and now was trying to cover her tracks. And she'd chosen to do it in my house, during a family gathering, as if she were untouchable. Her friend leaned over the can and wrinkled her nose at the smell. "Why not just cut it up?" "Cutting's boring," my sister-in-law said, tossing her hair. "Burning it makes it final." Final. She had no idea she'd just made it final for herself. I took out my phone, the camera already open. I started recording. Her voice, her face, the whole smug act. My hands were steady. I zoomed in on the curling edges of the card as it shrank into black ash. I thought about the arguments we'd had before, the little things she borrowed and never returned, the way my spouse always made excuses for her, saying she was just going through a rough patch. But $90,000 wasn't a rough patch. It was theft, and now I had proof. She laughed again, leaning back in her chair, and I caught her words clear as day. "Some poor idiot's maxed out card. Whoever it is, they'll never figure it out." I almost smiled. She was right about one thing. Someone wouldn't figure it out. But it wouldn't be me. It would be her. My sister-in-law had always been the kind of person who thought the world owed her something. She loved showing off, always dressed in designer clothes, even if she couldn't really afford them. If she saw something she wanted, she'd take it, sometimes asking, sometimes not. And if it was borrowed, she never bothered giving it back. It could be a sweater, a book, a piece of jewelry. Once it left my hands, I knew I wouldn't see it again. I had learned to keep my things out of her sight when she visited, but she still managed to find ways to get into them. I'd catch her opening drawers, peeking into closets, pretending she was looking for a pen or a charger. She had a way of smiling while she did it, as if that made it okay. My spouse, her brother, would roll their eyes when I complained. "That's just how she is," they'd say. "Don't make a big deal out of it." They wanted to avoid fights, so they'd smooth things over, tell me to let it go. Every time, I bit my tongue and tried to keep the peace. But inside, I hated how easily she got away with everything. She had this habit of spending money like it grew on trees. Whenever she came over, she'd brag about buying expensive things, new handbags, jewelry, electronics. Most of the time, she'd find some excuse about how she got a great deal, or it was practically free. I never believed her. I figured she was maxing out credit cards she'd never pay off. The problem was, she didn't just waste her own money. She had no problem wasting other people's too. One time, she asked to borrow my car for a quick errand. She said she needed to pick up something, just around the corner. I didn't think much of it, until she came back 4 hours later. The gas tank was nearly empty, there were fast food wrappers in the back seat, and a week later, I started getting parking tickets in the mail. She'd left my car in a no-parking zone in the city, and never told me. When I confronted her, she laughed it off. "Oh, come on. You can afford it. It's just a ticket." My spouse told me to drop it, before it turned into an argument. Another time, she borrowed my favorite coat, just for the weekend. Months later, I found it stuffed in the trunk of her car, stained and smelling like cigarette smoke. She shrugged when I showed her. "At least you got it back." It was always like this, small things that chipped away at my patience. She didn't care about boundaries. She didn't care about respect. And she definitely didn't care about the trouble she left behind for other people to clean up. I knew she had problems with money, but lately, I'd started to notice she was living bigger than usual. Flashier outfits, more expensive jewelry. She talked about booking trips, redecorating her apartment, buying gifts for herself, just because. None of it made sense for someone who didn't have a steady job. At first, I thought maybe she'd gotten lucky somehow. Won a prize, gotten a big tax refund, maybe even found someone to spoil her. But deep down, I had a bad feeling. This wasn't just her usual recklessness. It felt bigger, riskier. I couldn't prove anything, but I knew one thing for sure. If she was involved, it would only be a matter of time before the damage spread to me. It started with a simple notification on my phone. an email from my bank saying there had been a large purchase on my credit card. At first, I didn't think much of it. Mistakes happen. Maybe it was a glitch. But when I opened the statement, I saw the charge was for a designer handbag, almost $3,000, from a store I'd never been to. I called the bank right away and told them it wasn't mine. They agreed to remove the charge and said they'd cancel the card to prevent more fraud. I thought that would be the end of it, but a few days later, another email came. This time it was for an expensive watch from a luxury brand, then a high-end TV, then a laptop worth more than my first car. It didn't make sense. The card was supposed to be canceled, yet the charges kept coming in, each one bigger than the last. I called the bank again, confused and frustrated. They told me these were from new cards under my account, cards I didn't even have in my possession. Somehow, someone had my information and kept using it. They promised to issue new numbers and told me to keep an eye on my statements. That's when I started getting uneasy. Fraud from a stranger is one thing. You deal with the hassle, get your money back, and move on. But this felt different. It wasn't random. Whoever was doing this knew enough to keep finding a way in, even after the old cards were closed. I started paying closer attention. I checked my statements every morning. I wrote down every strange charge, even the smaller one. I called stores to ask about purchases, pretending to be confused about the order detail. A few were shipped to addresses in the same city, which made my stomach twist. At home, I got more careful. I locked my wallet away when guests came over. I stopped leaving important papers on the counter. When I wasn't around, I made sure my home office door was closed. I even went through the small security camera system we had, looking at old clips. Most of it was normal, family gatherings, deliveries, the dog running through the living room. But there were moments that made me pause. A hand rifling through a drawer when no one was supposed to be in that room. Someone stepping into my office for just a second before disappearing down the hall. I didn't jump to conclusions, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a stranger out there somewhere. This was closer. Too close. When people came over, I found myself watching them in a way I never had before. Not just polite attention, really watching. Who lingered in the kitchen when I left the room. Who walked upstairs without asking. Who looked a little too comfortable opening doors. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to tip anyone off. But inside, I was already on alert. I told myself that if I stayed quiet, I might see something. Something that explained how someone kept slipping past every block I put up. And deep down, I had a sinking feeling I wasn't going to like the answer. When the bank sent me another replacement card, I knew I couldn't just activate it and hope the problem would go away. I needed to know who was behind all the spending. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I came up with an idea that made my stomach feel tight, but I knew it was the only way. I took the new card, still in its paper sleeve, and slipped it into a plain white envelope. Across the front, I wrote in big black letters, "Work reimbursement, do not touch." I placed it right in the middle of my desk in the home office, not hidden, but not screaming for attention either. It was bait, and I was counting on curiosity to do the rest. A few days later, I told my spouse I wanted to host a family barbecue. It was nothing unusual, burgers, salad, a cooler of drinks. I acted like it was just another weekend get-together. My sister-in-law was invited along with the rest of the family. She showed up wearing big sunglasses, new shoes, and a smile that looked too smug for a simple backyard party. The afternoon went smoothly enough at first. People were talking, eating, and moving in and out of the house to grab drinks or use the bathroom. I stayed relaxed, chatting with relatives, but in the back of my mind, I was thinking about the envelope upstairs. When I saw my sister-in-law step inside and disappear down the hall, I made my move. I told a cousin I needed to grab something from upstairs, but instead of going all the way, I stopped halfway and slipped quietly into the guest room across from my office. From there, I had a clear view of the door. I pulled out my phone, camera ready, and waited. The sound of her footsteps was faint but steady. Then she appeared, glancing over her shoulder before slipping into my office. She left the door open just enough for me to see her cross to the desk. My pulse picked up, but my hand stayed steady as I hit record. She picked up the envelope, turning it over like she was checking to see if it was sealed. A moment later, she slid the card out, glanced at it, and smirked. She didn't hesitate. She pulled her phone from her pocket and started typing something in. I couldn't see the screen, but I didn't need to. I already knew what she was doing. For a few minutes, she stood there, tapping at her phone, reading, and smiling. Then she tucked the card into her purse, slipped the envelope back onto the desk like nothing happened, and walked out. I waited until her footsteps faded before stepping out of the guest room. My heart was beating fast, but I kept my face calm as I went back outside to the smell of grilled meat and the sound of laughter. She was already by the picnic table, sipping a drink like she hadn't just walked off with my card. No one noticed anything. No one suspected a thing. But now I had what I needed, proof. I stayed outside for the rest of the barbecue, acting normal, but every time I glanced at my sister-in-law, I thought about that card sitting in her purse. She was laughing, eating, talking like she didn't have a care in the world. I wondered how long it would take before she used it. I didn't have to wait long. Not even an hour after she left, I got the first notification from my bank. It was for a huge amount, so big I had to read it twice. $22,000. My stomach tightened as I read the description. It wasn't just a purchase. It was a booking for a luxury cruise. First-class suite. Ocean view. 2 weeks long. She hadn't wasted a second. Before I could even process that, another alert came in. $8,000 for fine jewelry. The name of the store was one I'd seen in glossy magazine, the kind that sells diamond bracelets and gold watches. I opened my banking app and just stared at the list as it grew. Thousands more were being drained from my account in real time. There was an order for high-end furniture, tables, chairs, even a leather sofa that cost more than my first car. It was being delivered to a local storage unit, not even her apartment. She was smart enough to hide where it was going, but not smart enough to realize I could still see every detail. I sat there in the quiet living room, watching the numbers climb. She was bold, too bold. This wasn't a desperate grab for quick cash. This was shopping without limits, the kind of spree you only see in movies. Every few minutes, my phone buzzed with another alert. It was like watching a slow leak drain something you'd spent years building. I kept my breathing steady, reminding myself that this was why I'd set the trap. This was the proof I needed, the moment everything would click into place. I imagined her somewhere, maybe in her car or sitting on her couch, grinning as she tapped confirm purchase over and over. I could almost see her smirking at her phone, picturing herself wearing the jewelry, lounging on the cruise ship balcony, showing off the furniture she probably planned to brag about owning. Part of me wanted to call her right then, to tell her I knew, to watch her panic. But I didn't. I stayed still. I let her keep going. Every purchase was another nail in her own coffin. By midnight, the total was staggering. She had spent nearly as much in one night as some people make in a year. And the best part? I had everything documented. The time stamps, the amounts, the stores. Every bit of it linked back to that card she took from my desk. I closed the banking app, turned off the notifications, and sat back in the chair. She thought she was being clever, hiding behind fake shipping addresses, and using the card fast before anyone could stop her. She had no idea that I was watching it all unfold, step by step. I didn't need to rush. She was doing all the work for me. The next time I saw her was at another family gathering. It was one of those afternoons where people drifted in and out of the house, carrying plates of food, talking over each other, and laughing in the kitchen. I kept my distance from her, but I noticed she had brought a friend along. The two of them stayed close, whispering and giggling like they were sharing a private joke. I was in the hallway when I heard her voice. "I maxed it out," she said, almost proudly. I froze. Her friend asked, "How much?" She laughed, a high, careless sound. 90 grand. Can you believe it? Some poor idiot's card. They both laughed harder. My hands curled into fists, but I didn't move yet. I wanted more. Her friend asked if she was worried about getting caught. "Nah," she said. "I'm just gonna get rid of it. Once it's gone, it's gone. No proof." I stepped quietly toward the sliding door to the back room. From there, I could see her crouched over a small metal trash can. The card was in her hand. She looked at it for a moment, smirked, and then flicked a lighter. The flame caught the edge, curling the plastic, releasing that sharp, ugly smell. Her friend wrinkled her nose. "Why not just cut it up?" "Cutting's boring," she said. "Burning it makes it final." I pulled out my phone, my fingers steady, and started recording. I caught the flames, her face, her laugh, her exact words. She had no idea I was standing just a few feet away, hidden behind the door. The card bent and shrank in the heat, turning black. She dropped it into the can, watching it burn to ash. "Goodbye, evidence," she said. Her friend clapped like it was some kind of game. I didn't say a word. I kept filming until the last piece of plastic was gone. Then I quietly slipped my phone back into my pocket and walked away before they even noticed I'd been there. In that moment, I felt no rush, no need to confront her right then. I had exactly what I needed, her own voice admitting to the theft, her face caught in the act, and proof that she thought she was untouchable. She didn't know the game had already changed. She didn't know that by trying to destroy the card, she'd given me something much more powerful than the plastic she burned. She'd given me the evidence that would undo her completely. That night, after everyone had gone home and the house was quiet, I sat on the couch with my phone in my hand. My spouse was in the kitchen rinsing dishes, humming like it had been a normal day. I waited until they came in, drying their hands on a towel, before I spoke. "I need you to see something," I said. My voice was calm, but there was no way to hide the weight behind it. They frowned and sat down next to me. I opened the video. The screen lit up with the image of their sister crouched over the trash can, lighter in hand. Her voice filled the room. 90 grand. Some poor idiot's card. Then the flicker of the flame, the hiss of melting plastic, the smug little smile. I didn't say anything while it played. I just watched their face. At first, they looked confused, like maybe they didn't understand what they were seeing. Then the confusion faded, replaced by shock. Their eyes widened, their mouth tightened. When the video ended, they let out a sharp breath. They didn't finish the sentence. Their hands were still on their knees, gripping the fabric of their jeans. It's my card, I said quietly. The one that's been getting all those charges. They stared at me, like they wanted me to say I was joking. When I didn't, they looked away and shook their head. I can't believe She did, I cut in. You just saw her admit it. For a long moment, there was only the sound of the clock ticking in the corner. Then they said, we need to talk to her. Privately, before this gets out of hand. I felt a sharp twist in my chest. Privately? Yes, they said quickly. If we call her out in front of everyone, it'll turn into a huge scene. The family will take sides. It'll be a mess. We can go over there tomorrow, tell her we know, make her give the money back. I looked at them, really looked, and realized they were still trying to protect her. Even after seeing the proof, their first thought was to shield her from the fallout. She's not going to give it back, I said. You know that. She doesn't even think she's done anything wrong. And if we let her get away with this, she'll just do it again. Maybe not to me, maybe not to you, but to someone. She's family, they said softer now, like that was supposed to make it better. Family doesn't steal $90,000 from you, I said. Family doesn't laugh while burning the evidence. They didn't have an answer to that. They just sat there, staring at the floor, jaw tight. I'm not going to have a quiet talk with her, I said firmly. This isn't about keeping the peace. It's about stopping her. If we handle this in private, she'll think she's untouchable. There have to be consequences. Their eyes flicked up to mine, searching for something. I didn't look away. After a long pause, they sighed, leaning back against the couch. I don't like it, they said. I don't either, I replied. But I'm done letting her walk all over us. The space between us felt heavy, but I knew I couldn't bend on that. She had crossed a line she couldn't step back from, and I wasn't going to be the one who erased it for her. A week later, the family gathered for dinner at my house. The table was full, plates being passed around, kids laughing, the usual noise of a big meal. My sister-in-law was sitting across from me, chatting and smiling like nothing in the world was wrong. I waited until everyone had food on their plates, and the conversation had settled into a comfortable buzz. Then I stood up. The room got quieter, but I didn't rush. I picked up the remote, turned on the TV, and connected my phone. At first, no one understood what was happening. The screen lit up, and there she was on video, leaning over the trash can, lighter in hand. Her voice filled the room. 90 grand. Some poor idiot's card. The noise at the table stopped completely. Forks hovered in midair. I kept the video playing, every second of her laughing, burning the card, bragging. When it ended, I turned to her. She had gone pale, her mouth slightly open, her eyes darting around like she was looking for a way out. That was my card, I said, my voice steady. The one you used to buy a $22,000 cruise, $8,000 in jewelry, and tens of thousands more in furniture and luxury items. The total is $90,000. She opened her mouth, shaking her head. That's not. I held up a hand and kept talking. That's grand theft and credit card fraud. Both are crimes. I have the receipts, the timestamps, the shipping details, and now your voice admitting it. She tried again, louder this time. You're twisting. The video started again on the TV, the part where she said, some poor idiot's card. Her own voice cut her off, echoing through the dining room. A couple of people at the table exchanged uneasy looks. Her face tightened, but she didn't speak. I looked around the table. This isn't about borrowing something and forgetting to return it. This is serious. And I'm done staying quiet about it. The silence was heavy. No one knew what to say. I could feel the shock in the room, but I didn't soften it. She had counted on me keeping this quiet, on me letting it go like all the smaller things she'd done before. This time, she'd been wrong. I sat back down, leaving the video paused on the TV screen, her face frozen in mid-lap. No one picked up their fork right away. The day after that dinner, I went to the police station with everything I had, bank statements, receipts, shipping details, and the video. I explained exactly what had happened, step by step. The officer listened, asked questions, and finally said there was more than enough to move forward. I signed the paperwork to press charges. A week later, the police showed up at her apartment with a warrant. I wasn't there, but I heard what happened from a neighbor and later saw pieces of it online. She had tried to act surprised when they told her why they were there, but the officers didn't waste time. They searched her place, hauling out boxes and bags. The expensive jewelry, the electronics, even the designer clothes she'd been showing off, they all went into evidence. They also went to the storage unit where some of the bigger items had been delivered. The leather sofa, the dining table, the rugs gone. Every last thing she'd bought with my card was taken away. The cruise company was easier to deal with. I called them directly and explained the situation. Once they saw the proof that it was purchased with stolen funds, they canceled her reservation. She lost her spot on the ship, and the money went straight into the investigation file. She didn't take it quietly. She went on her social media, posting long stories about how she was the victim of a misunderstanding. She said it was all just a mix-up, that the charges were fake, that people were trying to ruin her life. But she had made the mistake of boasting online before, showing off some of the things she'd bought. People began putting the pieces together. Screenshots started to spread. The comments on her posts turned harsh. She tried deleting everything, but by then it was too late. The damage to her image was already done. Her problems didn't stop there. I filed a civil lawsuit for damages to recover the full amount she'd stolen. The evidence was solid, and her own recorded words left little room for argument. Her lawyer tried to negotiate, but I refused to settle for anything less than the full amount plus legal fees. The criminal case moved quickly. The charges were serious: felony grand theft and credit card fraud. She went from posting photos of herself on shopping sprees to walking into court with her head down, wearing plain clothes instead of designer outfits. Her friends started keeping their distance. Even some family members stopped talking to her. The same people who used to laugh along with her bragging now avoided being connected to her. It wasn't about revenge for me, not really. It was about making sure she couldn't do this to someone else. She had crossed a line so far that there was no way back. When the legal notices arrived at her door, I imagined her reading them and realizing this time she couldn't just charm her way out or shift the blame. The law didn't care about her excuses. The bank didn't care about her family connections. The proof was there, and there was no escaping it. In the end, everything she thought she'd gained was gone. And this time, it wasn't me paying the price, it was her. Months passed before I saw her again. It was during the holidays, when the family gathered at my house for dinner. She came in quietly, nothing like the woman who used to burst into a room full of energy and loud stories. Her hair was tied back, her clothes plain, and her eyes tired. I knew why. By then, the court case was over. She had been given probation and had to pay restitution, but without a job, it would take her years. The felony charges meant she couldn't pass most background checks, and the people who used to lend her money or buy her things had stopped calling. She sat at the far end of the table, keeping her head down. The chatter of the family went on around her, but she barely joined in. I noticed she kept glancing toward the kitchen, probably taking in the changes. New counters, fresh cabinets, upgraded appliances. When it was time for dessert, I brought out a tray of plates and set them down in front of everyone. As I passed her, I smiled politely, just like I would to any guest. Then I set a slice of pie in front of her and said, "I'm so glad I finished the kitchen before the holidays." The insurance payout covered almost everything. I could feel the shift in the air, the small pause in her movements. She looked up at me, her face blank at first, then tightening as she understood exactly what I meant. I didn't stop there. "And the new card's been great too," I added lightly, pulling my brand new platinum credit card from my pocket to slice through the tape on a box of whipped cream. No issues so far. Her eyes flickered to the card, then back to my face. There was no anger in my tone, no raised voice, just calm, steady words. But I knew they landed exactly where they needed to. The rest of the table kept eating, but she didn't touch her pie. She sat there, fork in hand, staring down at her plate like it might give her a way to undo the past. But there was no way. She had called me a poor idiot once, certain she'd never be caught. Now she was the one with nothing, sitting in a room surrounded by the people who knew what she'd done. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. She already knew she had crossed the one person she couldn't afford to lose. And the look in her eyes told me she'd be thinking about that long after the night was over. Do you think I did the right thing by exposing my sister-in-law to the whole family and pressing charges? Or should I have handled it quietly like my spouse wanted? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to hear what you think. And if you enjoy more real-life revenge stories like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one.